Hold on, everybody. Over here again for a continuance on this book of Two Babylons. Okay, like I said, I'm gonna try and get all these videos out so that you all can see me acting like a fool. Y'all can hear me talking about this book. Okay. So far we've seen in a couple of countries, Assyria, Phoenicia, and Chinese mother worship. Okay, so I'll just be continuing here. And like I said in the past videos, if I can give y'all cross references in scripture or other notes, mental notes that I have of this stuff, I'll share it with you guys. Okay, continuing. Here there is a manifest enigma. How could Mercury of Hermes have any need to interpret the speeches of mankind when they all spake one language? To find out the meaning of this, we must go to the language of the mysteries. Peresh and Chaldee signifies to interpret, but was pronounced by old Egyptians and by Greeks and often by the Chaldees themselves in the same way as Perez, or to divide. So now you know what that last name means, Perez, not Perez. I know that Hispanics here in this area, they claim to be Mexican, putting a Mexican flag on their Facebook, but say, my name's Roger Perez, not Rogelio Perez. Just saying, people. Okay. But here, Perez is spelled P-E-R-E-S, which means to divide. Mercury then, or Hermes, or Cush, the son of Ham, was the divider of the speeches of men. He, it would seem, had been the ringleader in the scheme for building the great city and Tower of Babel, and as the well-known title of Hermes, the interpreter of the gods, would indicate, had encouraged them in the name of God to proceed in their presumptuous enterprise, and so had caused the language of men to be divided and themselves to be scattered abroad on the face of the earth. When I look at the name of Belus, or Bel, given to the father of Ninus or Nimrod. In connection with this, while the Greek name Belus represented both the Baal and Bel of the Chaldees, these were nevertheless two entirely distinct titles. These titles were both alike often given to the same god, but they had totally different meanings. Baal, as we have already seen, signified the Lord. There you go. The Lord, but Baal signified the confounder. When then we read that Belus, the father of Ninus, was he that built or founded Babylon, can there be a doubt in what sense it was that the title of Belus was given to him? It must have been in the sense of Bel, the confounder. And to this meaning of the name of the Babylonian Bel, this is a very distinct allusion in Jeremiah 1:2, where it is said, Bel is confounded, that is, the confounder is brought to confusion. That Cush was known to pagan antiquity under the very character of Bel. This is just B-E-L, not Bel. The confounder, a statement of Ovid, very clearly proves the statement to which I refer is that in which Janus, the god of gods, from whom all the other gods had their origin, is made to say himself, the ancients called the chaos. Call me chaos. Janus is your pagan god for January. That is where they got that name from. Pagan name for the month. What did it say? Jeremiah 1:2. It doesn't say that. Yeah. Misquote. The confounder is brought to confusion. I don't see that in here. Let's see, 11:2. I say it might be just a typo. Nope. Misquote. Anyways. Yes, Janus is the god of gods from whom all the other gods had their origin, is made to say of himself, the ancients called me chaos. Now, first, this decisively, yes, there's even a. Oh, almost time for my nap. Excuse me. There's also a rock band. I think it's got a female singer. Her name's Janus. You know where it comes from. Now, first, this decisively shows that chaos was known not merely as a state of confusion, but as the god of confusion. But secondly, who that is at all acquainted with the laws of Chaldaic pronunciation does not know that chaos is just one of the established forms of the name of Cush, Chus or Cush, or Cus or Cush, Chuscush. Then look at the symbol of Janus, whom the ancients called chaos, and it will be seen how exactly it tallies with the doings of Cush when he is identified with Bel, the confounder. That symbol is a club, and the name of a club in Chaldee comes from the very word which signifies to break in pieces or scatter abroad. Look it up. Janus, Janus. He who caused the confusion of tongues, as he who broke the previously united earth in pieces and scattered the fragments abroad. Genesis 11:1. How significant then as a symbol is the club as commemorating the work of Cush as Bel, the confounder. Excuse me, and that significance will be all the more apparent when the reader turns to the Hebrew of Genesis 11:9 and finds that very word from which a club derives its name is that which is employed when it is said that in consequence of the confusion of tongues, the children of men were scattered abroad on the face of all the earth. The word they use for scattering abroad is Hephites or Hephaites, which in Greek form becomes Hephaist, Hephaitz or Hphaizt, and hence the origin of the well-known but little understood name of Hephaistos as applied to Vulcan, the father of the gods. Isn't Vulcan the father of the god of fire or something like that? So we get the word volcano from Vulcan. But notice Vulcan, Vulcan, ends with Can, which means serpents. Might be the god of the serpent god or something. I don't know. Let's find out. Okay. Vulcan. Whoops. Vulcan. There it is, the Roman god of fire and metalworking. Cool. From Italian vulcano, burning mountain. From Latin vulcanus, Vulcan. Roman god of fire, also fire, flames, volcano. The name was first applied to Mount Etna by the Romans, who believed it was the forge of Vulcan. Everything has been covered with ramen noodles with Roman pagan idolatry. Hephaistos is the name of the ringleader in the first rebellion as the scatterer abroad, as Bel is the name of the same individual as the confounder of tongues. There's another scripture in Jeremiah. I can't think of, maybe it'll come out here. Here then the reader may see the real origin of Vulcan's hammer, which is just another name for the club of Janus or chaos, the god of confusion, and to this is as breaking the earth in pieces. There is a covert allusion in Jeremiah 1:23. There is no Jeremiah 1:23. Huh. There is no Jeremiah 1:23. There's only 19 verses. Where Babylon is identified with its primeval god is thus apostrophized. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? But if you read in Jeremiah 23, chapter 23, and chapter 23:29, it says, "It's not my word that along the prophets like a fire, says Yahweh, and like a hammer which breaks into pieces." So here we have How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? Now as the tower, I'll have to look into that. Now as the tower building was the first act of open rebellion after the flood, and Cush as Bel was a ringleader in it, he was of course the first to whom the name Merodach, the great rebel, must have been given, and therefore, according to the usual parallelism of the prophetic language, we find both names of the Babylonian god referred to together when the judgment of Babylon is predicted. Bel is confounded, Merodach is broken in pieces. It's not in there. Let's see. Let's see. Merodach. Merodach is broken in pieces. Jeremiah 50. Jeremiah 50 verse 2 says, declare among the heathens, declare among the nations, publish and set up a standard, proclaim, do not conceal it. Say, Babylon is taken, Baal Adonai, the Lord is shamed, Merodach or Marduk is broken in pieces, her gods are humiliated, the images are broken in pieces. There you go, Jeremiah 50 verse 2. So we'll put here typo. Okay. The judgment comes upon the Babylonian god according to what he had done. As Bel, he had confounded the whole earth. Therefore, he is confounded or confused. Yeah, I must remember that the word Nimrod means to rebel or rebellious. As Murdoch, by the rebellion he had stirred up, he had broken the united world in pieces. Therefore, he himself is broken in pieces. The prophecies, the prophecies in the book of Daniel 7 says that this fourth beast will devour and leave it in pieces. If you look, if you want to read Daniel 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and exceedingly strong, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces, then trampled the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before, and it had 10 horns. There you go. See how this stuff fits together? It's just no coincidence at all. So much for the historical character of Bel as identified with Janus or Chaos, the god of confusion, with his symbolical club. I think Balder had a club in one of the images. I think I was looking up some other one the other day, and it had a club in his right hand or left hand. I guess it don't matter, but I guess that's kind of like where we can get the image of Thor. I can't remember. But anyways, all right. Proceeding then on these deductions, it is not difficult to see how it might be said that Bel or Belus, the father of Ninus, founded Babylon, while nevertheless Ninus or Nimrod was probably the builder of it. I think the Bible says Nimrod erected Babel, wasn't it? Now, yeah, I can't remember. Now, though Bel or Cush, as being specially concerned in laying the first foundations of Babylon, might be looked upon as the first king, as in some of the copies of Eusebius' Chronicle. He is represented, yet is evident from both sacred history and profane that he could never have reigned as king of the Babylonian monarchy, properly so called, and accordingly in the Armenian version of the Chronicle of Eusebius, which bears the undisputed palm for correctness and authority, his name is entirely omitted in the list of Assyrian kings, and that of Ninus stands first in such terms as exactly correspond with the scriptural account of Nimrod. Again, probably because the whole personification. I know I've seen through the Philadelphia Church of God, they had a booklet. I might have it there somewhere, but they had Nimrod as a black man, and I think he had a club. I can't remember. Don't quote me on it, but yeah, it is probably because like the fourth beast Rome is not called the beast like modern day today. I mean, I can go over there, me and my girl talking about, going over there for like a vacation, and I can say, look, just listen to what I'm going to say. This is the fourth beast that is prophesied of in the book of Daniel. But the Pope's not going to be there and say, hey, welcome to the fourth beast. He's not going to say that. But he is still identified with that same title as Pontifex Maximus and or Pope and or the fourth beast, in the book of Daniel. Okay, so thus then, looking at the fact that Ninus is correctly made of antiquity, the son of Belus or Bel, when we have seen that the historical Bel is Cush, the identity of Ninus and Nimrod is still further confirmed. This all goes back to Nimrod. But when we look at what is said of Semiramis, the wife of Ninus, the evidence receives an additional development. That evidence goes conclusively to show that the wife of Ninus could be none other than the wife of Nimrod. Same difference. And further to bring out one of the grand characters in which Nimrod, when deified, was adored in Daniel 11:38. We read of a god called Alamahuzin, that is the god of fortifications. Let's look that up. Daniel 11:38. But in his estate he will honor the gods of wars, and gods unknown to his fathers he will honor with gold and silver, the precious stones and pleasant things. That's not there. It's another typo. I think it does mention something like that. I know I read it in here somewhere. But anyways, I'm going to highlight that part because it is not in here. But anyways, all right. Yeah, thankfully enough, I don't have to dissect this whole book. Well, yes, thank you for somebody, whoever said, look on your phone, dude. Let's see. God of fortifications. Fortifications. Come on, phone. It isn't 11:38. Okay. So, here online, and maybe even in your King James, it says, but in his estate shall he honor the God of forces and a God of whom his fathers. Okay, here it says the God of wars. Same difference. Alrighty. Who this God of fortifications could be, commentators have found themselves at a loss to determine. There's something to look up. God of fortifications, God of wars, the gods of wars. I'm gonna have to look that up. Who this god of fortifications could be, commentators have found themselves at a loss to determine. In the records of antiquity, the existence of any god of fortifications has been commonly overlooked, and it must be confessed that no such god stands forth there with any prominence to the ordinary reader. But of the existence of a goddess of fortifications, everyone knows that there is the amplest evidence. The only god of war I know is Mars. Mars is the god of war. The goddess Isabel, who is universally represented with a mural or turreted crown or with a fortification on her head. Why was Rhea or Sibel thus represented? Because it's all the same woman. Ovid asks the question and answers it himself, and the answer is this. The reason he says why the statue of Sibel wore a crown of towers was because she first erected them in cities. The first city in the world after the flood, from whence the commencement of the world itself was often dated, that had towers and encompassing walls, was Babylon, and Ovid himself tells us that it was Semiramis, the first queen of that city, who was believed to have surrounded Babylon with a wall of brick. Semiramis, then, the first deified queen of that city and tower, whose top was intended to reach to heaven, must have been the prototype of the goddess who first made towers in cities. When we look at the Ephesian Diana, there you go, we find evidence to the very same effect. In general, Diana was depicted as a virgin and the patroness of virginity. We're going to cover a little bit of that, I think, further on in this book, about how Mary supposedly retained herself as a virgin and the patroness of virginity. But the Ephesian Diana was quite different. She was represented with all the attributes of the mother of the gods, and as the mother of the gods, she wore a turreted crown such as no one can contemplate without being forcibly reminded of the Tower of Babel. Now, this tower-bearing Diana is by an ancient scholiast identified with Semiramis. Now, allow me to surprise you a little bit if you don't already know this. Let's see first what this crown looks like. Well, here we have a mural crown. That is what a mural crown looks like. I'm trying to get the glare out of there. That's probably Diana. It says turreted. Well, if I find any more evidence of what I really want to show you, I'll point it out. Okay. When therefore we remember that Rhea or Sibel, the tower-bearing goddess, was in point of fact a Babylonian goddess, and that Semiramis, when deified, was worshipped under the name of Rhea, there will remain, I think, no doubt as to the personal identity of the goddess of fortifications. But here we have, in his estate, he will honor the gods of wars and gods unknown to his fathers. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things. That is what he will do in the strongest fortresses with a strange god, which he will acknowledge and increase with glory, and he will cause him to rule over many and will divide the land for gain. But up here in 37, it says he will neither regard the gods of his brothers nor the god desired by women. Tammuz. It's Tammuz. Yeah, it says it right here on the footnote. Against all the gods he will act without regard, for he will magnify himself above all. Looks like he will declare himself to be God, because that is what 2 Thessalonians talks about. Anyways, let's move on. Now there is no reason to believe that Semiramis alone, though some have represented the matter so built up battlements of Babylon. We have the express testimony of the ancient historian Megasthenes, as preserved by Abydenus, that it was Belus who surrounded Babylon with a wall. As Bel within a wall. Let me see something real quick. Believe people, I am not proud of getting these tattoos. All right. As Bel, the confounder who began the city and Tower of Babel, had to leave both unfinished, this could not refer to him. It could refer only to his son Ninus, who inherited his father's title and who was the first actual king of the Babylonian Empire, and consequently Nimrod. The real reason that Semiramis, the wife of Ninus, gained the glory of finishing the fortifications of Babylon was that she came in the esteem of the ancient idolaters to hold a preponderating position and to have attributed to her all the different characters that belonged or were supposed to belong to her husband. Having ascertained then one of the characters in which the deified wife was worshipped, we may from that conclude what was the corresponding character of the deified husband. Layer distinctly indicates his belief that Rhea or Cybele, the tower crown goddess, was just a female counterpart of the deity presiding over bulwarks or fortresses, and that this deity was Ninus or Nimrod. We have still further evidence from what the scattered notices of antiquity say of the first deified king of Babylon, under a name that identifies him as the husband of Rhea, the tower-bearing goddess. That name is Kronos or Saturn. What is look up? Tower-bearing goddess. Tower-bearing goddess. Wow. We have a picture of the Greek goddess Tyche. But that is what that looks like. I can't remember if this book mentions her or not. But that is what that tower-bearing crown looks like. Oh, here's Athena. But she has a helmet on her head. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, all these other ones have crowns on them, or rather helmets. Pretty cool stuff, people. Well, look who we have here. Diana of Ephesus. There's a tower on top of her head. But isn't it kind of crazy how I told you about the capitals? There's, on top of those towers per se, is a feminine pagan goddess. In that picture you see, here's a bit clearer picture, not to be perverted or anything, but she's covered on her bosom full of boobies, so to speak. Okay, look her up, people. It is well known that Kronos or Saturn was Rhea's husband, but it is not so well known who was Kronos himself, the unknown god. Because Saturn is the unknown god. I think it was we read earlier. Traced back to his original, that divinity is proved to have been the first king of Babylon. Theophilus of Antioch shows that Kronos in the east was worshipped under the names of Bel and Baal. And from Eusebius we learn that the first of the Assyrian kings, whose name was Belus, was also by the Assyrians called Kronos. As the genuine copies of Eusebius do not admit of any Belus as an actual king of Assyria prior to Ninus, king of the Babylonians, and distinct from him, that shows that Ninus, the first king of Babylon, was Kronos. But further we find that Kronos was king of Cyclops, king of the Cyclops, who were his brethren, and who derived that name from him, Cyclops. And that the Cyclops were known as the inventors of tower building. It says the king of the Cyclops, the inventors of tower building, occupied a position exactly corresponding to that of Rhea, who first erected towers in cities. If therefore Rhea, wife of Kronos, was the goddess of fortifications, Kronos or Saturn, the husband of Rhea, that is Ninus or Nimrod, the first king of Babylon, must have been Alamahozin, the god of fortifications. Wow. I'm going to jot here Daniel 11, 36 to 38. This stuff is making more sense now. All right. The name Kronos itself goes not a little to confirm the argument. Kronos signifies the horned one. Did y'all see Arnold Schwarzenegger? And I think it's the second Conan. You know, the first one where he's born and his mom gets... Okay, I think that one's the Barbarian. The second one is called the Destroyer, right? Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But in that movie is the god of gods, or the dream god, Dagos or Dagoth. I think Dagoth is a real pagan god. Let's find out. Dagoth Ur, known as Vorin Dagoth in life, and whom Vivek would later come to call the Sharmat. But in that, he's got one horn, right? This is a different guy all here altogether. Ooh, see, people, more stuff to look into. Let's find out the Conan horn god. It's either Dagos or Dagoth. Come on, phone. T-Mobile service is not all that great, and I'm using the Wi-Fi here at the house, and it's whatever. But I'm gonna put on here Dagoth or Dagos. As a horn is one known Oriental emblem for power or might, Kronos, the horned one, was, according to the mystic system, just as a synonym for the scriptural epithet applied to Nimrod, Geber, the mighty one, Genesis 10:8. He began to be mighty, he began to be mighty on the earth. The name Kronos, as the classical reader is well aware, is applied to Saturn as the father of the gods. Horn or horns also means like religious powers, kingdoms, or nations, as we have, if y'all had read about the seven-headed beast in Daniel and Revelation. That little horn is the Pope. We have already had another father of the gods brought under our notice, even Cush, in his character of Baal, the confounder, or Hephaestus, the scatterer abroad. And it is easy to understand how, when the deification of mortals began and the mighty son of Cush was deified, the father, especially considering the part which he seems to have had in concocting the whole idolatry system, would have to be deified too, and of course in his character as the father of the mighty one and of all the immortals that succeeded him. But in point of fact, we shall find in the course of our inquiry that Nimrod was the actual father of the gods, as being the first of deified mortals, and that therefore it is in exact accordance with historical fact that Kronos, the horned or mighty one, is in the classic pantheon known by that title. Oh, wow. See how much interesting this stuff goes as we go. Okay. Oh, it's Dagoth. D-A-G-O-T-H. D-A-G-O-T-H, the horned god. The scrolls of Skelos. Here he is, people. Started off as a handsome guy, but turned out to be a beast. That is the horned god Dagos in the movie Conan the Destroyer. Pretty weird, huh? I don't know if it's real. It doesn't say anything, but let's see. Here's Dagos. See, let it load up. The meaning of this name Kronos, the horned one, as applied to Nimrod, fully explains the origins of the remarkable symbol, so frequently occurring among the Nineveh sculptures, that gigantic horned man bull as representing the great divinities in Assyria. The same word that signified a bull signified also a ruler or prince. Okay, it's a false god. Well, it says Dagoth, also referred to as the dreaming god, is a fictional ancient Paleolithic god, and the true main antagonist in the 1984 fantasy film Conan the Destroyer. In the film, he was worshipped by the monarch Taramis and the people of the kingdom of Shadazar. He was a deity, but in the movie. Cool. Hence, the horned bull signified the mighty prince, thereby pointing back to the first of those mighty ones who, under the name of Gabers or Kabiri, occupied so conspicuous a place in the ancient world, and to whom the deified Assyrian monarchs covertly traced back to the origin of their greatness and might. This explains the reason why the Bacchus of the Greeks was represented as wearing horns, and why he was frequently addressed by the epithet bull-horned as one of the high titles of his dignity. I'm starting to think that they're getting this from in symbology wise, not factual, but symbology wise. The buffalo, the bull representing the Levites. So now y'all know what to look for, and if you've ever been considering the prophecies of the white buffalo, it's Levitical. It's a Levite guy, not an actual buffalo who comes actually talking. Excuse me. Even in comparatively recent times, Togrul Bek, the leader of the Seljukian Turks who came from the neighborhood of the Euphrates, was in a similar manner represented with 3 horns growing out of his head as the emblem of his sovereignty. I hope you guys, if you guys have been studying prophecy, or seeing what I'm seeing with these 3 horns. No, not yet. This also, in a remarkable way, accounts for the origin of one of the divinities worshipped by our pagan Anglo-Saxon ancestors under the name of Zernebogos. This Zernebogos was the black, malevolent, ill-armed divinity. In other words, the exact counterpart of the popular idea of the devil, as supposed to be black and equipped with horns and hooves, thanks to Hollywood. But in the times of whenever this book was actually written, they described the devil through, this mythological creature. Like we've seen what's that guy's name that's like this? It's a goat head. Well, let's look it up. Horned, I can't remember his name. Dumbledore. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? It's got to do with Wicca, whatever. It's got a weird name too. Is it Beelzebub? Horned goat. Let's see. Horned. Baphomet. There you go. This little guy right here. Oh, of course, could take me to Amazon. Now this has been represented to signify the devil. In a way, yes, it just signifies pretty much what I've read anyways. All that is carnal, carnally minded, whatever, okay? But that is what that Baphomet statue means, okay? But even the Wiccans, people who practice Wicca, have that in their imagery. And as you see, that's got that as above, so below thing. We read this earlier in this book, okay? But even if y'all have, like I said, Hispanic, Mexican friends that play loteria, the lottery, it's got all those little images of, you know, the watermelon and the broad and the topless mermaid and all this. It even has a picture of El Diablito. I mean, that's just Hollywood, but still it represents a mythological figure, something like that. But if y'all have been watching my videos, I keep telling you that the Satan herself was actually a beautiful woman. Oh man, it's almost time for my nap. I gotta take my medication. Oh, let's see. Okay, with horns and hooves. This name analyzed casts a very singular light on the source from whence has come the popular superstition in regard to the grand adversary. The name Cernebugus is almost pure Chaldee and seems to unfold itself as denoting the seed of the prophet Cush. I'll look up this, well, I'll just write it down, but I don't want to. Cernebugus. We have seen reason already to conclude that under the name Bel, as distinguished from Baal, B-A-A-L, Cush was the great soothsayer of false prophet worshipped at Babylon. False prophet revelation. Notice I said false prophet. The book of Revelation also mentions a false prophet. But independent inquirers have been led to the conclusion that Bel and Nebo were just two different titles for the same God, and that a prophetic God. Different countries, different names. Does the Keto comment on the words of Isaiah 46:1, Bel bows down, Nebo stoopeth, with the reference to the latter name? Well, let's look it up. Isaiah 46:1. Starting to feel a little bit queasy here. I need my medication. It says, Baal bows down, Nebo stoops. Their gods were upon the beasts and upon the cattle. Your carriages were heavy laden. They are a burden to the weary. That's something to look into. The word seems to, let's see. The word seems to come from Neba, to deliver an oracle or to prophesy, and hence would mean an oracle, and may thus, a comment suggests, be no more than another name for Baal himself or characterizing epithet applied to him, it being not unusual to repeat the same thing in the same verse in equivalent terms. Cernebugus, the great seed of the prophet Cush, was of course Nimrod, for Cush was Nimrod's father. No, he was not. Cush was not Nimrod's father. He begat Nimrod. Not the same thing. Just like we are not direct sons of Yahweh, but we become begotten of Yahweh when we keep his laws and his commandments and everything else. That is how one is begotten. That is why right now Yeshua is the only begotten son of Yahweh. Okay? But Cush was not per se like a direct blood lineage to Nimrod. Turn now to Layered and see how this land of ours and Assyria are thus brought into the intimate connection. In a woodcut, first we find the Assyrian Hercules, that is Nimrod the giant, as he is called in the Septuagint version of Genesis, without club, spear, or weapons of any kind, attacking a bull. Ah, there you go. I showed you that a couple of days ago in the picture, but it does show that picture. I think he has a sword in hand or something, but anyways, having overcome it, he sets the bull's horns on his head as a trophy of victory and a symbol of power, and thenceforth the hero was represented only with the horns and hoofs above, but from the middle downwards with the legs and cloven foot of the bull. Weirdo. Thus equipped, he is represented as turning next to encounter a lion, This in all likelihood is intended to commemorate some event in the life of him who first began to be mighty in the chase and in war, and who according to all ancient traditions was remarkable also for bodily power, as being the leader of the giants that rebelled against heaven. Now Nimrod, as the son of Cush, was black, in other words, was a Negro. There you go. Like I said, I think I read it first. It might have been here or in that booklet from the Worldwide Church of God through the late Mr. Armstrong and his people. Can the Ethiopian change his skin? Is in the original. Can the Cushite do so? Keeping this then in mind, it will be seen that in the figure, this in tune from Nineveh, we have both the prototype of the Anglo-Saxon Zernubugus, the seed of the prophet Cush, and the real original of the black adversary of mankind, with horns and hoofs. It was in a different character from that of the adversary that Nimrod was originally worshipped, but among a people of a fair complexion as the Anglo-Saxons, it was inevitable that, if worshipped at all, it must generally be simply as an object of fear, and so Kronos, the horned one who wore the horns, as the emblem both of his physical might and sovereign power, has come to be in popular superstition the recognized representative of the devil. Prototype, okay. In many and far severed countries, horns became the symbols of sovereign power. There you go, Book of Daniel. The corona or crown. Sometimes we just have to pronounce words the way they are, huh? The corona or crown, that's what a corona is, that still encircles the brows of European monarchs, seems remotely to be derived from the emblem of might adopted by Kronos or Saturn, who, according to Parisides, was the first before all others that ever wore a crown. The first regal crown appears to have been only a band in which the horns were set. Sorry, y'all, I had another spam call. Man, it's crazy. Yes, we were talking about, let's see, about the corona or the crown. The first regal crown appears to have been only a band in which the horns were set. From the idea of power contained in the horn, even subordinate rulers seem to have worn a circlet adorned with a single horn in token of their derived authority. Bruce, the Abyssinian traveler, gives examples of Abyssinian chiefs thus decorated, in regard to whom he states that the horn attracted his particular attention when he perceived that the governors of provinces were distinguished by this headdress. In the case of sovereign powers, the royal headband was adorned sometimes with a double, sometimes with a triple horn. The double horn had evidently been the original symbol of power or might on the part of sovereigns, for on Egyptian monuments, the heads of the deified royal personages have generally no more than the two horns to shadow forth their power. As sovereignty in Nimrod's case was founded on physical force, so the two horns of the bull were the symbols of that physical force. And in accordance with this, we read in Senkuniathan, hard to pronounce words, that Astarte put on her own head a bull's head as the ensign of royalty. By and by, however, another and higher idea came in, and the expression of that idea was seen in the symbol of three horns. Trinity. A cap seems in course of time to have come to be associated with the regal horns. In Assyria, the three-horned cap was one of the sacred emblems, in token that the power connected with it was of celestial origin, and three horns evidently pointing at the power of the Trinity. There you go. Still, we have indications that the horn band without any cap was anciently the corona or royal crown. The crown borne by the Hindu god Vishnu in his avatar of the fish. Isn't that where Christians get that little fish? It's just an open circle or band with three horns standing erect from it, with a knob on the top of each horn. All the avatars are represented as crowned. Did this guy use the word avatar back then? So for y'all keep saying, oh, we don't speak Hebrew, we don't speak Greek, but we do speak Sanskrit. Avatar from the Sanskrit avatara, or descent from an ava, meaning down, and tar, to cross. There you go, people. Avatar comes from the Sanskrit word avatara, meaning descent. With Hinduism, it means a manifestation of a deity in a bodily form on earth. So we're making ourselves into deities by making those little bitmoji. Ah, hell. So it says for those of us who don't practice Hinduism, it technically means an incarnation, embodiment, or manifestation of a person or idea. Ooh. I have to erase my bitmoji. All the avatars represented as crowned with a crown that seems to have been modeled from this, consisting of a coronet with 3 points standing erect from it, in which Sir William Jones recognizes the Ethiopian or Parthian coronet. You know what? That's crazy. Let's see. 3 horned. I was just seeing some pictures the other day. I think it was something I looked up here from this book. You know what? I think I erased it. I think I might have saved it. Not even coming to my head what it was or what it might have been. I know it was a figurine of a 3-horned goddess. Oh man. But hopefully you guys are catching on to this kind of stuff. Yeah, sure, it can be any god or goddess, but these things have significance as to where they come from. Obviously, this book is telling us pretty much all the details of it. Yeah. I think I saved it. Oh, I guess I didn't. Anyways, the open tiara of Agni, or Agni, the Hindu god of fire. Agnes, amber, like amber. The Hindu god of fire shows in its lower round the double horn, made it in the very same way as in Assyria, proving at once the ancient custom and whence that custom had come. Instead of the 3 horns, the 3 horn-shaped leaves came to be submitted, and thus the horn band gradually passed into the modern coronet or crown, with the 3 leaves of the fleur-de-lis or other familiar 3-leaf adornings. It's crazy. Among the Red Indians of America, there had evidently been something entirely analogous to the Babylonian custom of wearing the horns. For in the buffalo dance, there each of the dancers had his head arrayed with buffalo's horns, and it is worthy of a special mark that the satiric dance, or dance of the satyrs in Greece, seems to have been the counterpart of this Red Indian solemnity, where the satyrs were horned divinities, and consequently those who imitated their dance must have had their heads set off in imitation of theirs. When thus we find, for instance, let me read that part again. This is actually one whole sentence. Among the Red Indians of America, there had evidently been something entirely analogous to the Babylonian custom of wearing the horns. For in the buffalo dance, there each of the dancers had his head arrayed with buffalo's horns, and it is worthy of a special remark that the satiric dance, or dance of the satyrs in Greece, seems to have been the counterpart of this Red Indian solemnity. For the satyrs were horned divinities, and consequently those who imitated their dance must have had their heads set off in imitation of theirs. For instance, the Pope wears the fish mouth that represents the fish god. Dagos. That is what that is talking about, and that is exactly what the Pope is doing. Dagon. Check this out. No coincidence, people. Pretty cool, huh? When thus we find a custom that is clearly founded on a form of speech that characteristically distinguished the region where Nimrod's power was wielded, used in so many different countries far removed from one another, where no such form of speech was used in ordinary life, we may be sure that such a custom was not the result of a mere accident or coincidence, but that indicates the widespread diffusion of an influence that went forth in all directions from Babylon, from the time that Nimrod first began to be mighty on the earth. It's crazy, huh? Very crazy, people, I'm telling you. There was another way in which Nimrod's power was symbolized besides by the horn. A synonym for Geber, the mighty one, was Abir, while Aber also signified a wing. Nimrod, as head and captain of those men of war by whom he surrounded himself and who were the instruments of establishing his power, was Baal Averin, Lord of the Mighty Ones. But Baal Averin, pronounced nearly in the same way, signified the winged one. I showed you those pictures the other day. And therefore, in symbol, he was represented not only as a horned bull, but as at once a horned and winged bull, as showing not merely that he was mighty himself, but that he had mighty ones under his command, who were ever ready to carry his will into effect, and to put down all opposition to his power, and to shadow forth the vast extent of his might. He was represented with great, wide, expanding wings. So you see, people, those images you see are not aliens. I mean, like I said, believe in whatever you want, but that's not what it is. These guys right here, okay? You need to tell those guys on YouTube that they're not aliens or the Anakim or Anunnaki or stuff like that. Like I said, I love watching those videos too, but that's not what these things are supposed to be representing at all. Okay, they would represent the mighty ones, or like it says here, they represented that they were mighty and had other people under them that they governed. Okay, all right, that is the end of this section here, and we will continue probably Monday, because this is the weekend and tonight is the Sabbath. Do some reading and studying, and Sunday, well, I'll probably do one Sunday. We'll see what goes on Sunday. So again, questions, comments, leave in the comment section below. Any videos you want me to see and check it out, maybe help you out explain, I will do so. Till then, y'all have a good one, a great one.